This morning we're going to turn to Matthew chapter 2. We're going to start thinking about this whole Christmas story. You know, every year when I come to Christmas time, 33 years now preaching about Christmas, and I think, what am I going to say? And then I start reading and think, what am I not going to say? It's just that old story that never grows old. I told Allison, I started looking at it and I think, oh my, I've only got one Sunday to preach or 2 Sundays to speak or 3 Sundays, and I got more to say than I got time to say. But we've got Matthew chapter 2 this morning, and I want to look at a familiar passage and then think about it for a minute together before we go to our meal. And if you didn't bring anything for the meal and you'd like to stay, you're more than welcome. There's always plenty and more than enough. We'd love to have you stay with us and enjoy our Christmas Thanksgiving meal. You're more than welcome. Matthew chapter 2, beginning in verse 1. Now when Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, in the days of Herod the king, behold, there came wise men from the east to Jerusalem, saying, Where is he that is born King of the Jews? For we've seen his star in the east and have come to worship him. When Herod the king heard these things, he was troubled, and all Jerusalem with him. When he had gathered all the chief priests and scribes of the people together, he demanded of them where Christ should be born. And they said unto him, In Bethlehem of Judea, for thus it is written by the prophet, Thou, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, art not the least among the princes of Judah, for out of thee shall come a governor that shall rule my people Israel. Then Herod, when he had privily called the wise men, inquired of them diligently what time the star appeared. And he sent them to Bethlehem, and said, Go and search diligently for the young child. When you found him, bring me word again, that I may come and worship him also. When they heard the king, they departed. Lo, the star which they saw in the east went before them, till it came and stood over where the young child was. And when they saw the star, they rejoiced with exceeding great joy. And when they were come into the house, they saw the young child with Mary his mother, fell down and worshipped him. And when they had opened their treasures, they presented unto him gifts, gold, frankincense, and myrrh. 6 miles. Only 6 miles. 6 miles is not very far. If you are a person of average health and reasonable intelligence, you can walk 6 miles in 2 or 3 hours at a steady pace, as long as it's not too steep. You can do it in 2 or 3. You can start in the morning and be there by lunch. 6 miles, just about as the crow flies, halfway to our cross-county rivals over here, across the Buckoo Creek, about 6 miles. And so 6 miles is not very far to walk. And speaking of a 6-mile walk, I was reading some articles about various Christmas events that people were talking about on this travel network site. Different things that are done in different places in the country for Christmas. And one of them jumped out at me in Wheeling, West Virginia. Now, there's 2 reasons for that. Number one, it was West Virginia. And Allison, my wife, was born in West Virginia. She was born in Morgantown, West Virginia. Never forget, 2 famous people come from Morgantown, West Virginia. Don Knotts and my wife. Barney Fife and Allison from Morgantown, West Virginia. But then also it was Wheeling. And believe it or not, it's so hard for me to believe, I can't really admit this in public. 31 years ago, I preached in Wheeling, West Virginia. Only Southern Baptist Church in Wheeling, West Virginia at that time. 45,000 people in Wheeling, one Southern Baptist Church, and I was there preaching, and so I always think about that, Wheeling, West Virginia. But in Wheeling, West Virginia, they had this thing they called the 6-mile Christmas light walk. And there in Ogle Bay Park, I was reading the article, they have 6 miles of Christmas lights, strung, twisting, turning, tailing this way and that way. And you can drive it, or you can take the trolley. Got to pay $9, but you can take the trolley, or you can walk it. And most people that gave reviews, you can give up to 5 stars. And there's all 5 stars on this review about this Christmas light walk. Most people said, we enjoy walking because 6 miles is not far to walk. And I thought about that when I was looking at this passage, because it's 6 miles from Jerusalem to Bethlehem. 6 miles is all it is. Now, Jerusalem, Israel, not a big place. Most of you know, if you've studied, that the nation of Israel is only about the size of the state of New Jersey. Very small. About 180 miles from north to south, from Dan to Beersheba, as the Old Testament calls it. And Bethlehem at this time is a little town, maybe 500 people, most biblical scholars think. Bethlehem was one of those places that you didn't go to, you went through. It's one of those places that you went, kind of like Buckner over here, or something. You're going through to go someplace else, or Lynchburg over here. You go through to go someplace else. The only reason you would go to Bethlehem is if you lived there or you were supposed to be there for some reason. And we know, Luke reminds us, I'll read it to you, why they were there. It came to pass in those days, there went out a decree from Caesar Augustus that all the world should be taxed. And this taxing was first made when Cyrenius was governor of Syria. And all went to be taxed, every one into his own city. And Joseph also went up from Galilee, out of the city of Nazareth, into Judea, unto the city of David, which is called Bethlehem, because he was of the house and lineage of David, to be taxed with Mary, his espoused wife, being great with child. And so it was that while they were there, the days were accomplished that she should be delivered. And she brought forth her firstborn son, wrapped him in swaddling clothes, laid him in a manger, because there was no room for them in the inn. And the definite articles used there, it was the inn. It was the only inn in Bethlehem. It was the only place to stay. They couldn't just pull off the interstate and have 15 hotels to choose from. It was the only place, and there was no room there. Bethlehem was a very, very small place. It was so small that in 1868, Phillips Brooks, Congregationalist minister from the Boston area, was in the Holy Land, visiting the Holy Land. He was standing in Jerusalem, Israel. He was looking out across the plains there as the moon was shining down, and he could see Bethlehem. And he wrote these words, "O little town of Bethlehem, how still we see thee lie. Above thy deep and dreamless sleep, the silent stars go by." It was just a little town. But Bethlehem, because it was a little town, was not the place where the wise men thought they were to be. Notice there in verse 1, they came to Jerusalem. Of course, wise men seeking a newborn king, wise men seeking the King of the Jews, where would they go? Jerusalem, of course. Jerusalem, mentioned almost 700 times in the Bible. Jerusalem, the city of peace. Jerusalem, the city of God. Jerusalem, the city where David had ruled as the king in times before. That's where they wound up. That's where they thought the star was taking them. Of course, Jerusalem, where the temple was. Jerusalem, where the sacrifices were given. Jerusalem, of course. Wrong. They got to Jerusalem in verse 2. They said, "Where is he born King of the Jews? We've seen his star in the east, and we've come to worship him." The wise men, the wise guys, who were they? Why were they coming? How many were there? Well, there's a lot of conjecture about these wise men, a lot we don't know, a lot of speculation. We know they were Gentiles for sure. They were not Jews. They were probably from Babylon or somewhere along there. They were spiritual seekers. They were readers of books and watchers of skies. They were men with their head in the clouds and their feet on the ground. They were people who realized there was something more to all this than all this. There's something more to what we've got than what we've got. There's something beyond. There's something other. There's something better. They came searching, seeking for this one that they'd read about. It's believed when you read all the commentators, and some taters are more common than others, but when you read all the commentators, it's thought that they had traveled thousands of miles for a period of 2 to 3 years. And they came to Jerusalem at this time. We don't know if there were 3. You know, the 3 is perpetuated by the number of gifts. The number 3 is perpetuated by the song that we sing every Christmas, We Three Kings, you know that song. And some think that there were 3 because they represented the 3 sons of Noah, you know, who repopulated the earth, and all the people groups are represented in the number 3. And some even come up with their names, Balthazar and Melchior and Gaspar, but we don't know if there were 3 or 33 or 103. We don't know. But they came to Jerusalem because obviously they thought that's where the King of the Jews would be born. So they asked the guy in verse 2 in charge, Herod the king, where is he that is born King of the Jews? Where's the new kid in town? And Herod didn't like that one little bit. He said this town's not big enough for 2 kings. And he knew that nobody's born king unless he is king, because kings aren't born king, they're born princes, and they become kings. But this guy was born king, so he must be some kind of king, and he is some kind of king, the King of Kings. So Herod was troubled, and he kind of tried to figure out what was going on. And so he calls in, there in verses 4 and 5, some people in the Christmas story that you never thought about. Like I said, I think every Christmas, what am I going to talk about? And then you start to read and you think, really? Herod calls in, verse 4, the chief priests and the scribes of the people, the Jewish leaders, the ones in the know, the religious people, the ones that knew all about Christmas coming, knew all about Christ coming, knew all about it. He says, verse 4 and 5, where is he? Where is he going to be born? And they didn't say, duh. Well, let's go. No, they knew instantly. Verse 5, in Bethlehem of Judea. For thus it is written by the prophet. And they quote Micah 5:2. The prophet Micah had predicted that the Messiah, the King, Jesus, would be born in this little podunk place called Bethlehem, this little whistle stop before you got to the big city of Jerusalem, that the Savior would be born there. And they just spewed it right out. They spit it right out. They said he'll be born in Bethlehem. And so the wise men went on to Bethlehem. I mean, it was only 6 miles from Jerusalem to Bethlehem. Somebody better get that phone. It may be important. And I'll do the phone dance while you're looking for it in your purse. And that brings me to my question, the subject. All that was introduction. What I noticed here when I read this passage for the umpteenth time, but saw this for the first time in my entire life, why was it that the Gentile wise men immediately went to Bethlehem, but the Jewish religious leaders didn't? Did you notice that? Verse 4, verse 5. I mean, once these wise men were told he's in Bethlehem, they loaded up their camels with gold, frankincense, and myrrh, and they booked it to Bethlehem. The Jewish leaders didn't go. I mean, the wise men, they came so far, they knew so little, they gave so much, and yet the guys in the know did nothing. Fascinating to me. Fascinating to me. They were the ones, we're told, were expecting the Messiah, looking for the Redeemer, longing for His coming. And they find out these guys are going to go check it out. It's time. They don't go. Interesting. I thought of 3 possible reasons. There may be more. Why they didn't go 6 miles to Christmas. They were so close. but they missed it. They were right there, but they didn't go. One, if you want to jot these down, their knowledge made them lazy. They knew it all, but they did nothing. You may find this hard to believe, but you can know too much. You can know too much. Most of us, many of us, perhaps all of us already know more Bible than we're doing. Ouch. Woe is us. And these guys were like that. I mean, they had the scriptures. They copied it by hand. They memorized it. They were living in anticipation, but they didn't go 6 miles. They could have walked it in a day. They didn't check it out. They stayed in Jerusalem. They stayed by the stuff. They sat by the fire. They stayed in the comfy, cushy. Instead of just following the camels of the wise guys, just to check it out. I mean, if for generations and generations and generations you've been looking forward to a Messiah coming, don't you think you'd just go 6 miles to check it out? Not them. And we love the Bible, and we love to study, and we ought to study to show ourselves approved, but you can know too much, and it can make you lazy. And so that may have been one thing that kept them from going. Another thing I wrote down was their religion made them indifferent. They were the chosen people of God. They were the church-going people of God of their day. They never missed a Sabbath. They observed the law meticulously. Moses they venerated. As I said, they memorized the Old Testament. These were the leaders. These were the teachers. And as the leaders and teachers go, so do the people and followers go. But they had become complacent. They had become apathetic. They had become indifferent. And believe me, my brothers and sisters, indifference makes a big difference in your walk with God. And so their religion, their position, their tradition, their history, their heritage, and they were only 6 miles from Christmas. Wow. And then a third thing I jotted down was their blessings made them proud. They were so blessed. God had blessed them in so many, many, many ways. I mean, they had that bloodline, they had that pedigree, they had all the things I've mentioned, and yet they had become spiritually prideful, thinking because God has always blessed us, God will always bless us. Wow. We can apply these to our church. We can apply these to the church at large. We can apply these to our country, our nation during this time. Their blessings had made them proud. Me, follow Gentiles? Not me. Me, be led by 3 total strangers who don't, not me. Me, get behind those camels behind, not me. And it was only 6 miles to Christmas. They were 6 miles away. They were so close. They missed it. Do you know you can be really close to Christmas and miss it? Do you know you can be like these guys, lazy, indifferent, proud, or maybe you can be too busy, or too distracted, or too worried, or too hurried, or too caught up in the commercialism, and the next thing you know, Happy New Year. And so I don't know if that was all that was involved with them or all that's involved with us. But we don't even think about these guys today. I mean, I've read this story many, many times, and I never thought about them before. But it was only 6 miles to Christmas. You know, when we do a children's play, nobody ever asks to get to be these guys. You know, we got Joseph and Mary, and we've got the angels, we've got the shepherds, but nobody ever dresses up like the chief priests and scribes. They're out of the story. They missed it. But we always dress up 3 as the wise men, don't we? Because the Christmas card says, wise men still seek Him. 6 miles to Christmas. I want you to know that Christmas is closer for you now than it's ever been. You are nearer to God now than you've ever been. The title of the message, if you notice there in the bulletin, is not 6 miles from Christmas. It's 6 miles to Christmas. And if you feel like you're far from Christmas, I got one word for you. Well, 2 words. Turn around. That's all you got to do. That's all you got to do. If you feel like I'm far from Christmas, it doesn't feel like Christmas. I'm so this, I'm so that. Just turn around. 6 miles to Christmas. Christmas is closer than it's ever been. And the wise men knew that. They understood that. Keep walking. Keep seeking. Keep going. Keep believing. The 4th verse says, O holy child of Bethlehem, of the song, descend to us, we pray. Cast out our sin and enter in, be born in us today. We hear the Christmas angels the great glad tidings tell. Oh, come to us, abide with us, our Lord, Emmanuel. One more story and I'm done. Many years ago, probably late 60s, early 70s, probably early 70s, I didn't document this. The story's true, but I think that'd be the best date. Palm Beach, Florida. Pastor named Jess Moody, he's 91 years old now. Pastored a church there in Palm Beach, Florida. Through his ministry in that church, Palm Beach Atlantic College was started. It's a Southern Baptist school in Florida. I went to Southern Baptist School in Florida, not that one. Went to the Baptist College of Florida, now it's called. But Jess Moody, real affable, outgoing, sort of cowboy guy. He started this Bible study there in Palm Beach with the affluent. Very ritzy area, very affluent, many rich retired there, that type of thing. A lot of money. And he started this Bible study outside of the church, and it was nicknamed the $1 Billion Bible Study because of all the affluent people that came. It was Christmas time, and he was leading this Bible study. I think it was on a Tuesday night, if I remember. And like I said, early 70s. And he was going to lead a Bible study on people making a place in their heart for Jesus this Christmas. Don't let Christ be crowded out of your life. You know, those kind of things. We see those. Don't let your Christmas be too commercial. Don't miss Christmas. You know what I'm talking about. One of those kind of things. So he was going to drive that home, that with all that we do, and much of what we do is good. Family and friends and festivities and gifts, all that's good. But don't allow all that stuff to enter your heart where there's not a place for Jesus at Christmas. That was his main idea in the study. He got a telephone call about an hour before the study started that Rose Kennedy was coming to the Bible study. The president's mother and the Attorney General's mother. They had both been assassinated. You remember your history, don't you? Both John F. Kennedy and Bobby Kennedy had been assassinated. Their mother was coming to the Bible study. And Jess Moody tells the story. He thought about that, her coming, and should he change what he was going to say? And you know, it's funny when you're a speaker, you can know what you want to say, and then certain people show up, you're like, uh-oh, you know, what should I do? But you got to go ahead with what God lays on your heart. And he did. And he talked about that during the Bible study. And then when it was over, she asked if she could speak to him privately. And so she told the story. She said, you asked us to make a place in our heart for Jesus this Christmas. And she said, I want you to know that I've done that. And she said, I want to tell you the story about how that came about. And I copied it down so I wouldn't miss it. She said, as a young bride, I became enamored by the power of money, wealth, position, and status. I became selfish, living only for my own desires. Then my husband and I had a beautiful baby girl. But soon it became apparent that something was wrong with our daughter. Medical tests revealed that she had been born with severe mental retardation, that she would have to be institutionalized for her entire life. She said, my husband and I were devastated by this news. The devastation turned into enormous anger at God. How could you have done this to us? I asked God. The anger became a corrosive bitterness that drained every bit of joy from my life. One night, we were scheduled to attend a social gathering. At the last minute, we decided not to go. I was so consumed with anger, I knew someone would ask me about my daughter, and I would complain, cry, speak, say things that I did not intend to say. Then she said, that's when it happened. A maid who worked for our family for many years spoke to me. Mrs. Kennedy, I've been watching you for the last few weeks. I've seen how angry you are. If you don't do something, it's going to kill you. I think you should pray this prayer. O Lord, make my heart a manger where the Christ child can be born. Rose Kennedy told Jess Moody that she was so angry that she fired the maid on the spot. She said, I went to bed that night, but I couldn't sleep. Tossing and turning, I couldn't get that simple prayer out of my mind. Finally, she said, I knelt by my bed. In an act of deep surrender, I prayed, O Lord, make my heart a manger where the Christ child can be born. In that moment, in the depth of the night, when I cried out in anguish, God heard my prayer. She said, I've always been religious, you know. I'm a Catholic, and I've always believed in Jesus. But Jess, this was different. On this night, I opened my heart to Jesus in a new way, and my heart became a manger where the Christ child could be born. Love replaced anger. Love replaced all that had gripped my soul. And the end of the story is this. That morning, she rehired the maid who stayed with the family until she died many years later. It's 6 miles to Christmas. It's not that far. Don't miss it. Father, in Jesus' name, we come to you this day, asking you to lead us, to guide us, to give us faith to follow, to allow this simple prayer to be ours today. The fourth verse of the song we've sung many times, the words of this woman who dealt with it personally, that Jesus Christ would be formed in us, that He would become our God, Emmanuel. We thank you, Father, that you made it possible for us to turn around and to see you there. We thank you, Father, that through your grace and mercy, you make it possible for people like us to know the joy and the hope and the peace of Christmas, what it's all about. Help us, Father, to not be like these religious leaders we've seen this morning, to not think we've got it all figured out, to not think we know it all, to not think we've heard it all, to not think we've seen it all, and to miss it. Help us to be like these wise guys who didn't know much, but they knew something special was going on. Something wonderful was happening. And they just wanted to be part of it. And here we are 2,000 years later, telling their story again. Thank you, Father, that you've made it possible for every person here, although sinful, although fallen, although broken, to walk to Christmas and just follow the light. There are twists, there are turns, there are steeps and bumps, but if we just follow the light, we'll find Christmas every single time.